My name's Joe Colburn. I'm a librarian at Jefferson College. I'm going to be showing you guys today how to do research into specifically kind of music history and things like that. It's a little bit difficult. I just want to start off by saying at a community college, because we don't have a lot, we don't have as many resources for this sort of thing as like a university would, for example, but we do have some things. The first thing, there's already a link to in the A to Z list. So I'm going to show you that briefly. And then after that, I'm going to kind of walk you through how to do a search for music and for, composers and for movements and that sort of thing in our bigger databases. So if you just go to the A to Z list, which I can show you over here on the left from the library homepage, I just clicked Find Articles, and then you have this A to Z list here. You can also find stuff in this drop-down menu. I'm just going to go down to JSTOR first, to the music collection. This is the simplest thing to search for you all. It's got the least noise and kind of the most signal there. So the first time you go to it, obviously you're going to have to enter your V number and your last name in that box for the proxy server. So when you go to the JSTOR music collection, it's just going to land on this giant list of journals. Well, not giant, it's got 77. But within here, you can just search a lot of different things. And you'll notice that these are all kind of different. So some of them are very general, like American music, Asian music. Some of these journals are completely about a specific composer, like Bach here. You have folk music. So there's a few things to keep in mind, but really for you all, because the music research you're doing is so specific, you may not find something specifically on, for example, like if you want to try to research a specific instrument playing a specific, composition, you may not find that. What you may need to do is kind of go broader and think about like, okay, so can I research the composer? Can I research this particular genre of music and how specific instruments integrate into that? So let's just do a specific composer here. And what I'm doing here in this search box is I'm putting someone's name in quotes because it'll search it as a unit. If you put those two names separately, it would search everyone named Richard and everyone with the last name Strauss. So you want to kind of have those together. So I'm going to click the search button, and that's going to give me a few things. So 97 results. This is, like I said, the most straightforward way to search. And then you just go through here and you would click on the link and then kind of go in, and you can see that the journal is there. This journal is luckily in English. So you want to make sure that, what you're looking at is in English. You want to make sure that it's relevant to your specific interests in research. But this is what JSTOR looks like. And so if you need help kind of further delving into this, just go ahead and chat a librarian, or you can call us or email us and that sort of thing. And I'll show you how to do that later. So the other thing that you might want to do, because there's a lot here, but it's also, like I said, it's going to be kind of spotty in terms of its coverage, because for one thing, you're only going to find articles about those topics which someone else has decided to investigate. So if you're the first person to think of a specific connection, you may not, like I said, find an entire article on it. So another thing you might want to do, though, is cast a really broad net. So if you go to the A to Z list again, and you just click, let's just do Academic Search Ultimate. You could use any of the academic searches for this, but Academic Search Ultimate is the biggest. So here, I'm going to try that same search I did in the last, in JSTOR. I'm going to click Search and see what I find. Okay, so that's a fair number of things. The problem with Academic Search Ultimate is unlike that scoped JSTOR music subject database that we looked at, this Academic Search Ultimate has like millions of articles in hundreds of thousands of journals about all kinds of stuff. So, if you are searching something maybe more general than this, you may not have this much luck, but you'll notice even as you go through here, there's all kinds of random stuff in here. So you got academic journals, you've got reviews, you've got conference proceedings, which is like where a bunch of people who are scholars in music go to, a conference somewhere in a hotel, and then they all talk about, or talk about the papers they're writing. So conference proceedings can be good. Sometimes they're like unfinished papers, so they're not maybe the most ideal thing. But depending on what your instructor tells you you can use, you may be able to use those. But you'll see here that you have all kinds of stuff. So if you want to narrow it down a little bit more, 1300 is a lot. Those are a lot of abstracts to read. And abstracts are just what we're reading to determine kind of what the article is about. So if you go into, like, let's just go into this first one. So you'll see here it's got an abstract. And that abstract just gives you a sense of what is going on in that article. So that's just like the movie trailer for the article, if the article were a movie. It's not a substitution for what is actually in the article. It's just giving you a sense of, is this really what I want to be reading at this exact moment? So you have that. You're going through and you're looking at all of those. And like I said, 1300 may be too many, so you may want to narrow it down a little bit. If you're doing history, you don't necessarily need to worry so much about the date, because older articles, should ideally be pretty useful too. You just always have to bear in mind, like, if there have been any major, changes in the way that we understand a particular composer or whatever that I may want to keep in mind as I'm doing research. But if you go down here to where it says subject thesaurus term on the left-hand side, you'll see it's got all of these little topics. So if you do show more, what you're going to see here is someone has gone through every article and parsed out what is this article about. And then they tag it with these different subject thesaurus terms. So rather than initially that just where we just searched the person's name, this is actually going to tell you what is going on in that article more specifically. So let's say we want composers, musicians, operas. We select those things and hit update. So that's going to give us 150 results, and that's a pretty good set. You could go through and you could read the abstracts for all of those in like an hour and a half, I would say. Other things to keep in mind on the left-hand side here is you've got language. So if you don't speak Spanish or Czech or Estonian, you might want to just select English there, and that'll get rid of a lot of stuff. You will still sometimes see some articles where the titles are not in English and the articles are still in English, and that just means that that article has been translated. Typically, it won't be in a journal unless it is professionally translated. They won't have like a Google Translate version usually, because those are not going to be really accurate translations necessarily. There's also geography. So if you want to see just kind of how people in the U.S. have interpreted this person's work, you could do United States, you could do Germany, you could do various states, all that sort of thing. So this is really specific. The reception of the Hofmannsthal and Strauss operas in the United States. Wow. So you could click that, and then that would give you something to work with. So once you find the article that you like, you can click PDF full text on the left here, and that'll show you the article. So let's just wait for this to come up. So this is actually, you'll find some articles that are born natively digital, where someone like writes the article is kind of formatted digitally, and then it's published digitally and published in print. But if you see something like this, if you see how the words are kind of slanted off to the left like that, that's because this was published in print, and then someone scanned it retroactively in a digital format. So that's, it was published in 1987, so that's why. It's still just as reliable though. And so you can go through here and you can kind of get a sense of what's going on in that article. On the right over here, you'll see it's got email, cite, save, the citation, depending on what citation style you're using. If you're using MLA, for example, it gives you something to start with, but you still need to check that against your citation manual, whether that's MLA, APA, whatever that happens to be. So make sure that that's accurate, because they do have this note at the top: review instructions, make necessary corrections, because apparently they're not always totally accurate. So then you can download the article from the PDF. You can email it to yourself on the right. If you're going through and you find a lot of these that you like, but maybe you're running out of time, you don't have time to read all of them, or like I said, if you're going through and you're just reading abstracts, a good thing to do is you just click these plus signs inside the blue folders, and what that'll do is that'll kind of save all of those to a little kind of digital folder And then what you do is once you have all of the articles that you think are going to be useful, you go over here to where it says folder has items, and you can just click folder view, go to folder view, and that'll have all those together. And then you can select all, you can email them all to yourself at once. So that'll save you from having to go in individually and download each and every one. So you just put your email address here. You can put some comments if you want. Over here on the right, you want to make sure that HTML, full text, and PDF are both included. If you click this right here, you can do a brief citation, an abstract, or detailed citation. That's just going to give you some of the information you need to cite those sources in your paper later. So like I said, I made this look pretty easy because I've done the search before, but when you come in here for the first time and you start searching, it can be kind of frustrating because maybe you don't initially find exactly what you're looking for. Maybe it takes a little while to fully kind of get your head around what it is, how scholars refer to your particular topic. That's actually totally normal. That's how research is supposed to work. You would be very lucky if the first time you go into search, you find 1,000 articles on your topic. So really, the trick here is to not be discouraged and to continue to look and to think about those words that, for example, a scholar uses to talk about your subject, because they may not be exactly what you think they're going to be. If you find an article that you like, something you can do is go into the detailed description here, and you can look at where it says subject terms. So whenever someone is talking about metropolitan operas, they use opera companies, operas, radio broadcasting for the broadcasts of those operas. These are the ways that scholars talk about this particular topic. So what you can do then is you can say, okay, I'll just click on one of these, and that'll take me to a search that's going to have a lot more stuff like that article that I happened to find useful. So that's just something to keep in mind. When you're in the course of doing this, inevitably, as all people do, you may run into kind of a roadblock. You may not be able to think of any terms that work out and that are fruitful for you. So if you go to Ask a Librarian on the library tab, that's my face, you can find the link to chat, link to text, email, phone numbers. These are all ways to get in contact with librarians who, it's kind of our expertise to do research. So we're happy to walk you all through. We're happy to help you find resources and to give you pointers on kind of how to proceed further. So thanks for listening. Like I said, if you have any further questions, please contact me or the library, and we'll be happy to assist.